Hi there. So this is a review of building a grid system with a reference image, and we're going to work with this lovely shark. The image that you have printed off, it has three vertical lines and three horizontal lines. You'll notice that each square is numbered right down to square 16, and what the system allows you to do is just to focus on one little piece at a time, and it will be really helpful for really capturing a likeness of your image. And so what you will see here is these little X's every time the angle of the figure is changing. So doink, doink, doink. See, I captured all of that. So let's get started. So you will need to create one of these. Okay, this is what you're going to draw this onto. But what you need to do first is put a clean piece of paper, a new piece of paper over top. You're going to have 3 pieces of tape hanging around, and you are going to attach this all together, making sure that your lines are all nice and tight and lined up. Okay, this is real important. I tried photographing this, and there is a copy of this for you to print off, but there's some distortion that happens when it gets photographed. I format it to the right dimensions, but the lines just still keep shifting a bit, so we really do have to make our own grid reference page. So then what you're going to do, once you've got these two secured, you're going to take a bigger piece and you're going to go to a glass window with your pencil, with your ruler, and you're going to tape it up to the glass, and you're going to see all these lines come through, and you're going to start drawing them in, all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. And then once you've drawn in all the lines, then I want you to number them 1 to 16. Okay, so that'll take you a few minutes. Take your time, really take your time. Make sure that your lines are straight, completely the same as on here, okay? Because it will throw off your game if you don't capture accuracy with your lines. So put this video on hold, and when you come back, we shall continue. Okay, so you've got your reference, your grid all set up. You've got your boxes numbered. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn it this way so that my numbers are in sequence. And I'm going to start with the top left corner. I mentioned before about this being the outer construct. And so I always like to start in the top left corner. That'll be his nose. Usually when I teach this, I have students use a shish kebab skewer, just so that you learn to use your fingertips, and you're using your eye. You're using your eye to really gauge to get that measurement. So I'm going to just show you how to use a shish kebab skewer. Just like that, I've got my fingers pushed right up behind the edge of my paper. I've seen you guys take measurements, and sometimes your fingers are here and sometimes they're back here. Boom, boom, it has to be right there. And that, the tip of your measuring tool has to be right on the center of, your X's on the reference. If you're going to use a ruler, if that helps you, I'm going to do that here with a ruler. Put my finger, again, right on the edge of the paper. So what I'm going to do is put my fingers right to the edge of the paper. See that? They're not out over here. It's not back here. It's right there. I'm being precise. So I'm going to do a little line. So I've measured horizontally, but I'm going to do a vertical line. Okay, does that make sense? So here we go. I'm just going to make that long because I don't know what the cross point is. Then I'm going to measure up. And I'm seeing here where that is on my ruler, right to the navigation point. Put that there. Put my finger right on that grid line because that's where I took it. and I am doing a vertical measurement, but I make a horizontal line. So there we have our first navigation point. So I'm going to make a little X. All right. Now I'm going to go to the nose. See how there's an X right there at the grid line? So I'm going to grab that. So I'm going to go to the edge of the paper, measure that out. Well, actually, I already know that this will be the vertical line of that because it's the grid line. So what I'm going to do is grab it this way, and you can go to this grid line if you want. You can measure it from this grid line if you want. Some students go all the way to the bottom. You do what feels comfortable for you. Some students do the awkward way. I mean, I think it's awkward to turn the thing all the way around and measure to the top. I say just try to, when you're going along all this side here, just stick to that being where you're going to grab measurements that way. And I'm going to just go to one grid line below, oopsie, to there. Where on this grid line is this? So boom, put my fingers right to the grid line, not in front, not behind, right on the grid line. That's the intersection point. So boom, I have got another navigation point. So now what I can do, use my ruler and connect the two. All right. So I've got the beginning of his nose in. Now I'm going to grab underneath, and it's with the rounder shapes. I'm still going to break it down into straight lines, but with more navigation points. So for this one, it's floating in box number 2. So we're going to focus on box number 2. I'm going to take a measurement from the left side with my left hand, put the ruler right on that point, fingers right at the edge of the paper. Do the same here. I'm measuring this way, so I'm going to do a line that way. Now I'm going to measure from underneath. Boom. My fingers are right on the line. Make a little mark. Boom. My next navigation point. So now I'm going to use my ruler, connect the two, just like that. I'll do one more. We'll do this one more together. So I've got this little guy right here, right where his teeth are going to start. So I'm going to measure that from the side. Going this way, so I'm going to draw that way. But it's very close to this first line, so I'm going to measure from there. Slide my finger up to the line. Second box, right up to the line. Boom. There is my next navigation point. Nail that in, and so on. So I jumped ahead, and I've placed it with Sharpie so that you guys can see, and that you will continue. You're going to continue building one navigation point at a time. And if something looks wonky, you just recalculate your measurement. Maybe your paper shifted. Maybe your fingers slipped on the ruler. Maybe you forgot to make sure that your fingers were lined up right at the edge or right at the grid line. Just always just double check your math. And this is math. Just double check your math if something starts to go wonky. And you'll have a sense, and your eye is going to start to see that you're building something. It's mapping things out, it's measuring, and that's what your brain eventually is going to learn to do this without a ruler. But just so you know, there are professional artists that still use this system to draft out their subject matter onto their canvases. So this is, I would say, an intermediate to advanced project, but I think you guys are ready for it. And some of you I know are ready for it. For some of you, just like for me, it was like, this is real work. My noodle is having to work so hard, but it will pay off. It's like building new muscles in your brain, and the muscles will get built. And before you know it, you're going to be able to sort of do a double calculation. You might be able to just sort of, so for example, if I was just to sort of guess on this one, so it's in box number 7. His fin is in box number 7. So I can sort of guess just by gauging. That point is sort of right in the middle of that box. See how I'm using my plumb line just to sort of gauge? Yeah, that looks like it's in the middle of that box, just to the right a bit if I do a good guess. So maybe I only have to take one measurement. I'm going to take it from the bottom of that grid line. Boink. Put it right there. And I'm just going to double check because I was just guessing. Always double check. Pretty good guess. So that'll be my next navigation point. So I can start drafting all this in, etc. Okay, so I hope that that feels clear. Please message me any questions you have. You can take pictures and send it to me and say, Michelle, I measured this, but something went wrong. Please send me a photo, and I'd be glad to chime in and help make a correction. Things like the teeth, you have to sort of free draw that, but you will do that later. Like details like the eye, yeah, measure that in now. I just did a guesstimate on mine of where it goes. All this shading and stuff, you're going to do on the next stage of your piece. Alrighty?